What we're watching and waiting is the atmosphere. If it develops thunderstorms, it can become severe very quickly. We're talking about a tornado threat.
The Dodge City has issued a tornado warning for Kiowa County in south-central Kansas.
There's also power lines down on 183 south.
At 9:17 p.m. Central Daylight Time, National Weather Service meteorologists were tracking a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado 14 miles south of Greensburg.
Very large tornado on the ground.
This is an extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation.
Jay, this tornado is a very big tornado.
If you are in the path of this destructive tornado, take cover immediately in a basement or other underground shelter.
So can you get a location where the people trapped at?
Kind of tough to listen to, right? That was a timeline from a horrible day in Kansas history. You just heard from an audio clip, tapes we've never heard from before here at KAKE, from a storm that we certainly hope to never see again. That tornado over in Greensburg on the ground for more than an hour. It measured 1.7 miles wide, leaving this path of destruction behind. That storm killed 11 people. It injured dozens of more. And this week, it marks 15 years since that devastating storm hit that community out in western Kansas. This morning, I'm going to take you over there where first responders share what took place that very night.
And when the storm started coming in, I know how crazy dispatch can get, so I ended up going back in that evening.
The day was just kind of an odd feeling day. They knew that we were going to have some severe weather.
At this point, the community is on high alert. The dispatch office is fielding phone calls one after another, and they're keeping an eye on what's happening.
Weather now from the Emmy-winning Cakeland Weatherflex.
Well, we're kind of playing watch and wait for the development of severe weather. If you live in Greensburg, the vicinity of Greensburg and to the south, I really suggest you go down to your storm shelters.
We were watching the weather, watching it come for us. Again, you never expect it to actually hit town, hit the building that you're in.
At that point, had the dispatchers turn on the sirens and keep them going until, of course, we need to shut them off, but it came right to town and shut it off for us.
Now, Ray Stegman, he had been the sheriff for many years, but he just transitioned that spring into this role as emergency manager. And he was out storm spotting that night. But he says despite them being in the heart of at least what was then known as Tornado Alley, he says they were not prepared.
It was more of an, oh crap, this is really going to happen type thing. So it really wasn't that much of fear. It was more like, this is really going to get us.
The town loses power, everyone's hiding, just taking cover as that tornado barrels through the city. For a whole 65 minutes, that tornado is on the ground covering 28 miles.
Greensburg's taking direct hit at this time. Who said Greensburg's taking a direct hit?
The lady that screamed on the tape was actually one of our deputies' wives. He had been a deputy for us for a long time, and he was gone at the time, and she was at home but had his radio with her. So the scream that you heard was actually her as the tornado was going through her house.
We did hear all the windows throughout the rest of the building breaking. We heard the debris hitting the back door, and that's when we realized that the tornado was hitting Greensburg.
One of our firemen also reported that his house had been hit. So we pretty much knew at that point it went pretty much straight downtown. All I could see to the west was emergency vehicles lined up, ready to come into town.
Hello! Hey now! Hello there! Hey! Get off me!
Where you at, sir?
Hold on, I'm right. Okay, calm down.
And then there's first responders coming in from all sorts of communities, even as far as Wichita. And as they enter town, it's really challenging because they don't have lights, there's no landmarks. They're navigating this whole thing blindly.
So then they basically put us into search operations, and we spent the rest of the night door to door, zone by zone, clearing the entire city, house by house, damaged building by damaged building.
How many houses did you go to?
Hundreds.
One of the positive things was knowing everybody around us, and that's probably one thing that a lot of counties need to do, is know your resources that are around you too. Because it's not just going to happen to you. If they come in to help or you go somewhere else to help, you need to know everybody around you. Because the help's there. It's just, it was amazing to see the amount of people that came in to help us.
Now, Wichita wasn't the only community with fire crews that came in. Other agencies, including up in the Kansas City area, neighboring states also assisting in the weeks ahead. I did have a chance to speak further with Wichita Fire, and we'll share their stories throughout this month here, talking about everything that they have learned from Greensburg. But they talked about it was so unique, so different, because typically when they go to a house fire, they'll go in, it's pretty quick, right? You got to go put out the flames, rescue the people, you're done. But in this case, those hundreds of homes they're checking, one after another, it's just, it's so tough for them. And it's tough in another way as well, because they had to, when they went to homes, if they found any person who had passed away, they had to leave those people behind. They would mark the house, and then they would come back to retrieve those bodies sometime later. So it's a lot for those first responders to go through. But we're going to hear more from them, also the city of Greensburg, the community as well, as they're moving forward with their lives today. Throughout this month, again, we're going to continue to share their stories of life after the storm. But then on May 23rd, we are releasing a documentary on the small town and how it has made a really amazing comeback. I've been working with other members of the KAKE News team. That documentary airs on KAKE and KAKE Plus on May 23rd. It's a Monday, and we'll keep you posted on it right here on KAKE.
It has been a busy severe weather season this year in Kansas. We've seen a small tornado in Sharon Springs that took out some buildings in town, and a twister like this one in Andover that destroyed dozens.
Tonight, KAKE's Annette Lawless shows us how one of the biggest tragedies in state history inspired change that continues to keep us safe today.
You could hear the top half of our house start tearing up.
House just started flying apart in pieces.
The whole house shaking, you could feel it.
It was just quiet, and all of a sudden, whoof.
I told my wife, I said, this is a bad one.
I would like to get a message to my kids that I'm still alive, babies, and I'm still here.
It's in these moments 15 years ago when the harsh reality sank in. Greensburg, a city of maybe 1,500 people, had lost everything. Homes, schools, businesses, the town wiped out by a tornado.
No, you can never be prepared for that. We didn't even really have a emergency operations plan. That was part of what we were going in to try to put together.
Elderly first, women first. We had a pregnant woman, we need to get them out, get them to a shelter for the night.
The response highlighted a lot of problems, like the fact the state was not prepared for all of this. It could have been, if it weren't for one thing: war. The war in Iraq took away too many resources, including from Kansas.
About half the boots on the ground in 2007 and 2008 were coming out of National Guard. And not only were they deployed, but their equipment went with them. So we had big empty lots where equipment used to be, and we could not draw on that equipment to move it to Greensburg. And we couldn't ask our surrounding state fellow governors to loan us their equipment because theirs was gone too.
Former Governor Kathleen Sebelius tells me that the year before, she wrote letters to President Bush saying things needed to change. They never did.
We sort of put this in writing. We told you this might happen, and we really need you to ramp up these supplies because we don't have the stuff we need.
I am struck by the strength of the character of the people who live here in the plains.
The devastation caught the eye of leaders. Soon, that federal help arrived. Yet perhaps the most powerful response came from next door.
Do what we can to try to find everybody who's out there who may be trapped, and we'll do our best.
The storm inspired change, a lot of it. Today, Wichita's Special Ops Unit is training for rescues, the same ones that saved lives in 2007.
Size up a building and properly shore it up in order to get inside and do any type of rescue operations. The wall's not going to go the other way, so it's not going to pull apart.
They're taught in part by Wichita Battalion Chief Scott Kleinschmidt. He was there to help Greensburg, something he says was pretty rare. Back then, Wichita crews typically stayed here in the county. But there were talks of a program, streamlining tools and manpower statewide.
What was born out of Greensburg is here we are 15 years later, and we have a very robust rescue program throughout the state.
After a storm had wiped out everything, they have built a foundation, bringing communities together, keeping Kansans safe.
You don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody, but bad things are going to happen. You just want to be able to go and help those people with all the experience and the equipment and the things that you've done throughout your career.
In Greensburg, Annette Lawless, KAKE News.
And tonight at 6:30, join us for a commercial-free documentary. We hear from the people who survived the Greensburg tornado. We also listen to audio from first responders, and we hear a message of hope. Again, that's at 6:30 on KAKE and on the KAKE Plus app.
And we had to rebuild pretty much from scratch. So the town you see today is very much not the town that people knew for 100+ years of its initial existence.
A devastating and deadly tornado tearing through a small Kansas town. But even now, 15 years later, the community of Greensburg is continuing to move forward. I will say that one of the most compelling images in the weeks that we've been covering this story right here at KAKE is this aerial view. And this is a look at the city before. See all that green there? And this is a look at the town after everything was ripped through with that storm, just about as wide as the city itself. As we continue to look at that story of the EF5 tornado and its impact, I want to take you to the western part of the state today with a look at its biggest challenge yet, life after the storm.
The tornado of May 4th, 2007 definitely left its mark on Greensburg. My name is Matt Christensen. I'm mayor of Greensburg and I've been mayor for about 4 years. It changed the town forever for sure, as it destroyed the vast majority of homes and businesses and infrastructure here in the city.
It's always numbing to see that kind of level of destruction. I mean, schools are no longer usable, so you can only imagine the impact it had to the kids in the town. And of course, people lost their homes, and that, you know, as everything is gone. A year after Greensburg, I went back to Greensburg and I wanted to see how was the rebuilding process going. And it was a little slower than I expected because they went ahead and elected the green theme.
So after the storm, we got new water system, new electrical, new streets, and that has benefited of us in hindsight. It's kind of a silver lining because a lot of smaller towns have aging infrastructure that's challenging to maintain, whereas we're in much better position.
It's good and bad. At that time, there was a lot of green companies that were wanting to invest here, and a lot of their stuff was, I think, experimental. I would do anything to have back what we had. One of the things is trees, and you have that, especially during the summer, you have that comfort of having that trees everywhere. And now we don't have trees. We have, I don't know if it's even half the houses we had prior to the tornado. I don't think we have even half. Our population's down.
Greensburg's greatest challenges now are not at all related to the storm. It's related to just the economic challenges that small towns face all over the country. Just the demographic trends for decades and decades and decades have been towards more urbanization. Small towns have been getting smaller, larger cities have been getting bigger, and it's just trying to foster economic development and opportunity in rural America is our biggest challenges now.
I miss the older folks that used to be here. That sort of thing. It's different. It's like it's of course a new Greensburg, but I miss the old one a lot.
There's another story here, and that is the rising up after the disaster and how you cope with that and how you build back with that. And being an engineer, I'm very interested in this next step, kicking it up a notch where you're building better. And I like that because I wish all houses were built better, because that would then reduce the number of injuries and fatalities in tornadoes.
The thing I'm most proud of about Greensburg is most definitely the people. It was a strong community at the time of the tornado, and I'd say it's a stronger community now. Just that experience of the tornado, going through the tornado and rebuilding after the tornado definitely brings the community together, and I think we're a very active community, a very friendly community, and definitely go the extra mile for our friends and neighbors if they ever need anything. So just kind of seeing the community come together after the tornado is what I'm proudest of. I mean, we've got great facilities, we have great infrastructure, but I think the people are what I'd say I'm proudest of.
And our KAKE News team has put together several stories in the past couple of months of life after this storm. You can catch our KAKE documentary, 65 minutes, and exclusive bonus content. You can watch those over at KAKE.com as well as on the KAKE Plus app.